Hello, dear members of the Soul Stories family. Today we will bring you a romantic love story, so let's get started. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss any meaningful stories. Amelia Brooks stood before the dilapidated house, her muddy work boots clinging to the damp earth. A chilly April breeze swept through, rattling the rotting wooden planks on the fence. She frowned, hands on hips, her eyes scanning the scene of decay. A sagging roof, shattered windows, and wild shrubs growing rampant as if to swallow the structure whole. This wasn't a house, it was a ruin, but to Amelia, it was her last chance to reclaim what she had lost. At 28, Amelia was an ambitious architect with neatly tied brown hair and green eyes that gleamed with determination. She had grown up in the shadow of Brooks & Sons, her family's small construction company in suburban Virginia. As a child, she trailed after her father, Henry Brooks, to job sites, clutching sketch pads and humming country tunes. He taught her to read blueprints before she could do math, to measure wall angles before she understood love. "A house isn't just bricks and mortar, Amelia," he'd say. "It's where dreams are held." But that dream shattered 5 years ago. Brooks & Sons collapsed after a ruthless takeover by a large corporation. Contracts were canceled, clients walked away, and debts piled up like concrete blocks on her father's shoulders. Henry fell ill. Heart disease, the doctor said. But Amelia knew his heart broke long before his body followed. Her mother, once vibrant with a radiant smile, became a shadow hovering by her husband's bedside. The family lost everything, the company, their home, and their faith in brighter days. Amelia tried to move forward. She graduated with top marks in architecture and worked at a design firm in Richmond. But small projects couldn't revive her family. Each night she sat at her drafting table sketching houses she knew she'd never build. Then a real estate auction changed everything. An old house in the small town of Willow Creek, priced so low she could afford it with her meager savings and a bank loan. It wasn't a mansion, just a wreck. But Amelia saw potential. If she restored it, turned it into a masterpiece, she could start anew and prove the Brooks name still held value. She signed the contract, her heart pounding. This was the biggest gamble of her life. Willow Creek was a quiet, small town with oak-lined streets and white-painted wooden houses. Amelia's house sat at the end of Maple Road, next to a wide lot with a rusted iron fence. The day she moved in, a light rain fell, and she struggled with boxes under the persistent drizzle. Her old pickup truck screeched as it stopped, and Amelia, soaked through, wondered if she was making the biggest mistake of her life. That's when she met Grayson Blackwood. She was dragging a heavy wooden crate up the steps when a deep, cool voice came from behind. "You planning to tear down the whole neighborhood with this mess?" Amelia spun around, her breath sharp. Standing by the iron fence was a tall man in his early 30s with naturally tousled black hair and gray eyes as sharp as steel. He wore a simple black shirt, sleeves rolled up, but something about him, his stance, his gaze, exuded unspoken authority. His angular face was striking, almost unapproachable, as if carved from stone. "Thanks for the warm welcome," Amelia shot back, her tone sarcastic. "I'm the new neighbor, and you're the president of the anti-newcomer club?" His lips twitched, but the smile, if you could call it that, held no warmth. "Grayson Blackwood," he said, nodding toward the large house behind him, partially hidden by trees. "I live over there, and I don't like noise." "Well, lucky you, because I'm just rebuilding a house, not throwing a music festival," Amelia retorted, clutching the crate tightly. The rain grew heavier, soaking through her jacket, but she refused to show weakness in front of this man. Grayson studied her, his eyes moving from her wet hair plastered to her forehead to her muddy boots. "That house is a dump. You're wasting your time." "Thanks for the advice," Amelia said, her voice dripping with mock sweetness. "But I didn't ask for your opinion." She turned, hauling the crate inside, her heart pounding, not just from anger. Something about Grayson Blackwood unsettled her, a mix of arrogance and mystery she couldn't ignore. In the days that followed, Amelia threw herself into work. She spent hours measuring, drafting, and inspecting the house's structure. Every crack in the walls, every rotted beam told a story, and Amelia was determined to turn them into a fresh start. But things weren't easy. Her budget was tight, and local contractors quoted exorbitant prices when they heard about the house's condition. She started doing some of the work herself, tearing up floorboards, prying out broken windows, but the slow progress worried her. Grayson, true to his word, wasn't a friendly neighbor. He rarely appeared, but whenever Amelia saw him, jogging in the morning or standing by the fence watching her wrestle with lumber, she felt his piercing gaze. One day, as she struggled to pry loose a stubborn board, his voice came from across the fence. "Do you even know what you're doing?" His tone wasn't quite mocking, more like a challenge. Amelia wiped sweat from her brow, shooting him an annoyed look. "I'm an architect. You think I'm playing with blocks?" He shrugged, leaning against the fence, arms crossed. "Being an architect doesn't make you a builder. That board's going to fall on your head if you're not careful." She wanted to argue, but just then, the board creaked and tilted toward her. Amelia jumped back, heart racing. Grayson said nothing, just gave her an "I told you so" look. She gritted her teeth, returning to work, determined not to let him see her flustered. But that brief moment planted a seed of curiosity in Amelia. Who was Grayson Blackwood? Why did he live in that big house, yet dress simply and keep everyone at arm's length? And why, despite his infuriating arrogance, could she not stop thinking about those gray eyes? One late evening, Amelia sat on the house's steps, her sketches spread out before her. A flashlight illuminated the scribbled lines, and she bit her lip, calculating costs. Her funds would only last a few months, and without an investor or buyer, the project would collapse. She sighed, leaning back to gaze at the twinkling stars above Willow Creek. That's when she heard footsteps. Grayson emerged from the darkness, holding a coffee mug, his stride casual as if he owned the world. "Working this late isn't a great idea," he said, stopping a few steps away. Amelia raised an eyebrow. "Worried about me, Blackwood? Or just afraid I'll make noise?" He didn't answer right away, just sat on a nearby rock, sipping his coffee. "Do you know who this house used to belong to?" he asked, his voice low. She shook her head, curious despite herself. "Number just that it's been abandoned for years." Grayson looked at the house, his gaze distant. "The Harper family. They lived here for generations until they lost everything in the recession. This house was their pride." He paused, then met her eyes. "What do you think you can do with it?" Amelia wasn't sure if he was mocking her or genuinely asking. She picked up her sketch, handing it to him. "I'm going to make it a home worth living in. Not just beautiful, but alive. A place someone can call their own." Grayson studied the sketch, silent for a long moment. Then he handed it back, his voice softer than usual. "Hope you know what you're doing, Brooks." He stood and walked away, leaving Amelia with her sketches and a strange feeling in her chest. She didn't know that, in that moment, Grayson had looked at her longer than he intended. And for the first time, he wondered if this crumbling house and the stubborn woman standing before it could change something in his life. Amelia Brooks sat in the makeshift living room of the dilapidated house in Willow Creek, the flickering light from an old desk lamp casting shadows over the pile of blueprints and papers strewn across the scratched wooden table. The wind whistling through the cracks in the walls mingled with the chirping of crickets outside, creating a mournful nighttime symphony. She rubbed her temples, her eyes fixed on the renovation budget, a glaring red column of numbers that served as a stark reminder that her dream of turning this house into a masterpiece was slipping away. The bank had denied her request for an additional loan, and local contractors quoted astronomical prices. Amelia bit her lip, wondering if this gamble was the biggest mistake of her life. A knock at the door interrupted her thoughts. Amelia frowned, glancing at the clock. Nearly 10 p.m. Who would come at this hour? She stood, wiping her hands on her dusty jeans, and opened the door. There stood Grayson Blackwood, her enigmatic neighbor, his cool demeanor intact in a dark coat and with those sharp gray eyes. But something was different, a tension in the way he crossed his arms, as if holding back something. "Blackwood," Amelia said, folding her arms to mask her surprise, "if you're here to complain about yesterday's hammering, I stopped before 8. Grayson didn't respond with his usual barbed remark. He looked at her, his gaze piercing as if trying to read her mind. "I have a proposition," he said, his voice low. "You should hear me out." Amelia raised an eyebrow. half curious, half skeptical. What kind of proposition brings you here this late? Grayson glanced over his shoulder, as if ensuring no one was listening, then stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. Amelia closed the door, a sense of unease rising. He stood in the middle of the room, tall and imposing, but there was a hint of hesitation in the way he shoved his hands into his pockets. "I need a wife," he said bluntly without preamble. Amelia blinked, certain she'd misheard. "What?" "A contract wife," Grayson continued, his tone as casual as if discussing the weather. 1 year. No emotions, no strings attached. Just a paper agreement. Amelia let out a dry laugh, thinking he was joking. "Who do you think I am? A character in some cheap rom-com?" She shook her head, turning back to the table, but Grayson didn't leave. He stood there, his eyes locked on her. "I'm not joking," he said. "My family's pressuring me to marry someone I don't want. If I don't come up with a solution, they'll control my life. I need you to play my wife, long enough for me to get out of this." Amelia turned back, crossing her arms, staring at him. "And why me? Don't you have friends, a girlfriend, or, I don't know, someone else willing to do this?" Grayson's lips twitched, a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "You're the ideal choice. You don't know anything about me. You're not connected to my family and—" He paused, his gaze sweeping the cluttered room. "You need money." His words hit like a slap. Amelia felt her face flush, but she couldn't deny the truth. She needed money to fix the house, pay her family's debts, and restart her career. Grayson, infuriatingly arrogant as he was, clearly knew it. "What makes you think you know anything about me?" she asked, her voice low but sharp. "I see you struggling with this house," Grayson replied, unfazed. "You're running out of steam, Brooks. I can help. Enough money to fix this place, jumpstart your career, whatever you want. In return, you sign the contract and play my wife for a year." Amelia fell silent, her mind racing. She wanted to throw him out, to say she wouldn't sell herself for money. But the image of her father in his hospital bed, her mother selling her wedding ring to cover medical bills, flashed in her mind. She looked at the house, cracked walls, leaking ceiling, and knew her options were dwindling. "How much are you offering?" she asked, her voice dry. Grayson named a figure that nearly made Amelia choke. It wasn't just enough to fix the house. It could fund her own architecture firm, clear her debts. But at what cost? A year of living a lie, playing the wife of a man she barely knew. A man who both unsettled and irritated her. Grayson revealed little about why his family was pushing the marriage, only mentioning family issues involving a woman named Serena Whitmore, whom he refused to marry. He stressed the contract would be clear. Amelia would live with him, attend a few events, and keep the arrangement secret. After a year, they'd divorce amicably, each going their separate ways. "No complications, no emotions," he said, as if reading an insurance policy. But to Amelia, everything was complicated. After Grayson left, she sat alone, clutching the contract he'd handed her. The black and white print was cold, but it promised a way out for her family. She thought of her father, who once said, "Sometimes you have to sacrifice to rebuild." But was this the right sacrifice? She didn't trust Grayson. He was too secretive, too controlled. He claimed he was just a man under family pressure, but his sharp gaze and confidence made her suspect he was hiding something bigger. She called Lily, her college best friend, for advice. "Are you insane?" Lily shouted over the phone. "Sign a marriage contract with your weird neighbor? What if he's a murderer?" "He's not a murderer," Amelia replied, though she wasn't certain. "He's just annoying." "But that money could change everything, Lily." "Yeah, by landing you in a mess," Lily said. "You're Amelia Brooks, the most stubborn person I know. Don't do something stupid." But Amelia didn't feel stubborn. She felt tired, drained, and scared. She looked at the house around her, walls on the verge of collapse, and thought Grayson might be right. She was running out of steam. The next morning, Amelia met Grayson at a small Willow Creek cafe. He sat in a corner, reading a newspaper, looking like he owned the world. She placed the signed contract on the table. "I'm in," she said, her voice firm. "But I have conditions." Grayson folded the paper, raising an eyebrow. "Go on." First, I want an upfront payment to start fixing the house. Second, I don't want any drama from your family or this Serena person. Third, she locked eyes with him, don't think you can control me just because of this contract. Grayson studied her, a flicker of admiration in his eyes that he quickly masked. Your trouble, Brooks, he said, but his tone wasn't insulting. Fine, I agree. They shook hands, but when his hand touched hers, Amelia felt a jolt run through her. She pulled back quickly, telling herself it was just nerves. She had just entered a game whose rules she didn't know, with a man she didn't understand. But as she thought of her crumbling house, she knew there was no turning back. Grayson Blackwood's house, nestled beside the crumbling ruin Amelia Brooks called home, was like a small castle in the heart of Willow Creek. Its gray stone walls, towering glass windows, and meticulously trimmed garden exuded discreet elegance, but carried the same coldness as its owner. Amelia stood before the iron gate, clutching a small suitcase, feeling as though she'd stepped into a world that wasn't hers. The fake marriage contract was signed, the money transferred, and now she had to live with Grayson in this house, playing the role of his pretend wife for a year, filled with rules and secrets. Yet her dilapidated house, just a few steps beyond the fence, remained where she spent most of her time renovating, keeping her dream alive. Grayson opened the door, his icy gray eyes scanning her. You're late, he said. No greeting, no smile. Amelia raised an eyebrow, dragging her suitcase over the threshold. Sorry, I was busy saving my house from collapsing. You know, priorities. He didn't reply, merely let her inside. The interior was exactly as she'd imagined. Modern, minimalist, but devoid of warmth. Gleaming hardwood floors, black leather sofas, and abstract paintings on the walls, all beautiful but soulless. Grayson pointed to a hallway. Your room's down there. Don't touch my things and we'll be fine. Amelia smirked. Don't worry, I'm not here to steal your silver spoon collection, Blackwood. But I'll still be going back and forth to my house to work. Don't expect me here 24/7. Grayson raised an eyebrow, clearly unaccustomed to being challenged. As long as you show up when I need you, I don't care what you do in that junk heap. That house is not a junk heap, Amelia shot back, but she didn't want to argue. She had too much to do, here and at her own place. Living with Grayson in his luxurious home was a quiet battle. Amelia, with her straightforward and laid-back nature, quickly realized Grayson was the embodiment of control. He had a rigid routine, jogging at 6 a.m., black coffee without sugar at 7, and never a dirty cup left in the sink. Amelia, on the other hand, tracked dust from her crumbling house, left blueprints scattered on Grayson's dining table, and had a habit of eating cookies on his expensive leather sofa. These differences sparked a series of moments both humorous and tense. One evening, Amelia decided to cook dinner in Grayson's sleek kitchen to keep the peace. She chose spaghetti, thinking it was simple enough. But while juggling cooking and checking emails from contractors on her phone, she forgot the sauce on the stove. When Grayson walked in from his office, smoke was billowing, and the acrid smell of burnt sauce filled the air. He crossed his arms, leaning against the doorway, his expression pure, I told you so. Is this your plan to burn my house down, Brooks? He asked, his tone dripping with sarcasm. Amelia's face flushed as she fanned the smoke with a dish towel. I was just trying to make a decent dinner. Could you help instead of standing there mocking me? Grayson, instead of replying, stepped forward, turned off the stove, and opened the windows to let the smoke out. Then, with infuriating calm, he ordered pizza from a nearby place. When it arrived, they sat across from each other at the glass dining table, chewing slices in silence. But then Amelia burst out laughing, unable to hold it in. Okay, I admit it, I'm a disaster in the kitchen. You win. Grayson looked at her, his gaze softening slightly. I'm not keeping score, he said, but the corner of his mouth twitched, a rare smile that made Amelia's heart skip a beat. The arguments continued, often over trivial things. Amelia wanted to hang a colorful painting in Grayson's living room to add some life, but he called it a visual assault. She accidentally left muddy boots by the door. He neatly arranged them and left a note. This isn't your construction site. Once, after a long day working on her house, Amelia used Grayson's master bathroom, leaving a wet towel on the floor. He knocked on the door, his voice icy. "Brooks, this isn't your house. Get out!" Amelia, hair still damp, opened the door and faced him. "Relax, Blackwood. I just took a shower, not threw a party in your tub." She wore an oversized t-shirt, barefoot, and for a fleeting moment, Grayson's eyes flicked over her, from her wet hair to her bare feet, with a spark that wasn't annoyance. But he quickly turned away, muttering something about personal boundaries. These small moments began to chip away at the wall between them. Amelia realized Grayson wasn't just the arrogant man she'd first assumed. He took tense late-night calls about family he never explained, and he had a habit of standing by the window, staring at her dilapidated house when he thought no one noticed. She began to wonder what or who he was running from. One day, while Amelia was working on her house, she heard the roof creak under a heavy rain. She rushed to check, only to find a new hole, water pouring onto the kitchen floor. Panicked, she called contractors, but no one could come on a weekend. As she struggled to cover it with a tarp, Grayson appeared, raincoat soaked, carrying a toolbox. "What are you doing here?" Amelia shouted over the rain, standing on her roof. "Keeping you from collapsing this house," he replied, already climbing up. In the pouring rain, he patched the hole with surprising skill. When they finished, both drenched to the bone, they stood in Amelia's kitchen, water dripping. She handed him a towel, mumbling, "Thanks. I didn't expect you to know how to do that." Grayson wiped his face, his eyes meeting hers. "There's a lot you don't know about me," he said, his voice low. Then he turned, heading back to his house, leaving Amelia with a heart beating faster than usual. Another tender moment came when Grayson fell ill with a fever. Amelia found him on the sofa in his house, face flushed, stubbornly refusing medicine. "I'm fine," he snapped, but his voice was weak. Amelia, who'd come over to grab some blueprints, didn't bother arguing. She cooked a pot of chicken soup, the one dish she didn't burn, and forced him to eat. She sat beside him, checking his temperature, and when he drifted to sleep, she tucked a blanket over him, noticing how his face, in sleep, looked unburdened, free of its usual guardedness. These small acts melted the defenses of both their stubborn hearts. Amelia began to see Grayson as a man with unspoken wounds. Grayson, in quiet moments, realized Amelia was more than a contract. Her passion for her old house, the way she laughed even when everything fell apart, stirred a feeling he'd buried long ago, a longing to connect, to be loved for himself. But outside pressures began to creep in. One day a woman appeared at Grayson's house, Serena Whitmore. Tall, elegant, with sleek blonde hair and eyes sharp as knives, Serena introduced herself as Grayson's old friend. But the way she looked at Amelia, like she was an insect, suggested she knew about the marriage. "Grayson always makes interesting choices," Serena said, her voice sweet but laced with venom. She left after a private talk with Grayson, leaving Amelia with a gnawing unease. Grayson refused to explain, saying only, "She's not important." Amelia didn't believe him. She began to question Grayson's intentions. Was he truly trying to escape a forced marriage, or was she just a pawn in a larger game? Her doubts grew when Lily, her best friend, visited and confronted her. "What are you doing, Amelia? Living with a mysterious guy, playing fake wife? Don't you see how weird this is?" "I need the money, Lily," Amelia replied, but her voice lacked conviction. "And he's not as bad as I thought." Lily raised an eyebrow. "Not bad? Or are you starting to like him?" Amelia denied it, but Lily's question planted a seed. Was she feeling something for Grayson? And if so, how dangerous was that when they were bound by a loveless contract? Their shared life continued, woven with humor and tension. Once, Amelia accidentally spilled coffee on Grayson's laptop, sparking a heated argument, until they both laughed at the absurdity. Another time, Grayson followed Amelia to her house to help carry a large wooden beam for her renovation, and when their hands brushed, they paused, the air thick with something unspoken. Grayson began to see Amelia as a light in his life, a woman unafraid to challenge him, undeterred by his cold exterior. But he knew, with the secret of his millionaire status and the Blackwood family, he was walking a tightrope. Amelia, though she wouldn't admit it, felt her heart leaning toward him, a man both distant and close, infuriating and endearing. Amelia Brooks stood before the mirror in the guest bedroom of Grayson's house, struggling with the zipper of an emerald green evening gown he'd provided. The dress shimmered under the light, hugging her figure, making her feel like she was cosplaying a Disney princess. Except this princess was about to walk into a family gala that felt more like diving into a Shark Tank. Just hours earlier, Grayson had dropped a bombshell that left her reeling. He wasn't an ordinary man pressured into marriage, but Grayson Blackwood, heir to the Blackwood Corporation, a billion-dollar business empire. "I hid my identity because I wanted to be treated like a normal person," Grayson had said, his usually cold gray eyes flickering with rare sincerity. "In Willow Creek, no one knows who I am, and I wanted to keep it that way, especially with you." Amelia was stunned, then furious. "You thought lying to me was the way to be normal?" She fired back, arms crossed tightly. "I signed this contract thinking you were just a guy with family drama, not a billionaire playing dress-up." The argument stretched on, with Grayson explaining he feared being judged through the lens of wealth and power, while Amelia admitted she needed the contract to save her house. In the end, she agreed to continue playing the fake wife to help him face his family. "But if your family turns me into an appetizer, I'm bolting," she warned, injecting humor to mask her anxiety. Grayson's lips twitched, his eyes glinting. "They don't eat people, Brooks. But brace yourself." Now, staring at her reflection, Amelia wasn't sure she was ready. She smoothed her brown hair, tied in a high ponytail because she didn't know how to do anything fancy. "I look like a construction worker in a ball gown," she muttered, then jumped when Grayson knocked. "Done?" he asked, stepping in. He wore a tailored black suit, hair neatly combed, looking so striking that Amelia had to force herself not to gape. His eyes swept from the dress to her face, and for a moment, he seemed at a loss for words. "What?" Amelia snapped, suddenly self-conscious. "I know, this dress is over the top. I'm not used to this stuff." Grayson shook his head, his voice low. "You look fine." But his eyes said more, and Amelia felt her cheeks warm. He quickly handed her a small velvet box. "Wear these. My family likes flashy things." Inside was a pair of exquisite pearl earrings. Amelia raised an eyebrow. "These aren't real diamonds, right? I don't want to get mugged on the way home." Grayson actually laughed, a short, warm sound that made Amelia's heart skip. "Just pearls, Brooks. Don't get your hopes up." The gala was held at a lavish estate outside Richmond, where the Blackwood family hosted their annual event to flaunt their status. As Grayson's limousine pulled up to the gate, Amelia felt like she'd stepped into a Hollywood movie. Except she wasn't sure if she was the protagonist or a side character about to be written off. The estate glowed with lights, boasting marble columns, a red carpet, and uniformed staff bowing as they entered. Grayson took her hand, squeezing it lightly as if to reassure her, but Amelia sensed his tension. "Just smile and don't argue with anyone," he whispered. "And if my mother asks anything, keep it short." "Is your mom that scary?" Amelia asked, trying to sound playful. Grayson glanced at her. "She could make a leopard panic." They entered the grand hall where hundreds of guests, dressed in extravagant attire, clutching sparkling champagne flutes, chatted animatedly. Amelia felt like a minnow in a glittering ocean. She kept her back straight, but the curious stares and whispers from the crowd made her want to flee back to her crumbling house. Eleanor Blackwood, Grayson's mother, approached first. Tall and elegant, with silver hair in a high bun and eyes sharp as blades, she looked at Amelia as if she were a misplaced decoration. "So this is your bride," she said, her voice sweet but icy. "Amelia, is it? An architect, I hear." "Yes, ma'am," Amelia replied, forcing a smile. "I'm restoring an old house in Willow Creek." Eleanor raised an eyebrow as if restoring houses was a quaint joke. "How charming. But that must be messy, no? Hardly fitting for a Blackwood." Amelia felt a surge of heat, but before she could respond, Grayson cut in, his voice firm. "Amelia is exceptionally talented, Mother. She doesn't need to fit anyone." Eleanor smiled, but her eyes screamed, "This girl doesn't belong here." She whisked Grayson away to meet important people, leaving Amelia alone in a sea of strangers. That's when Serena Whitmore appeared. Amelia recognized her instantly, the woman who'd visited Grayson's house. Serena, in a striking red gown, looked like she'd stepped out of a fashion magazine. Her smile was as sharp as a blade. "Amelia, right?" Serena said, offering her a champagne flute. "I must say, you're surprising. Grayson always had such unique taste." Amelia sipped the champagne, striving for calm. "Thanks, I guess. You're Grayson's friend, right?" Serena giggled, a sound that gave Amelia goosebumps. "Oh, more than a friend. Our families are very close. In fact, many thought Grayson and I were the perfect match." She tilted her head, eyeing Amelia head to toe. "But it seems he's experimenting." Amelia gripped her glass, refusing to let Serena bait her. "Grayson can do what he wants," she said, her voice light but sharp. "And he chose me." Serena raised an eyebrow as if enjoying a game. "Of course, but be careful, Amelia. Grayson's world isn't easy to navigate. You might find yourself out of place." Before Amelia could retort, a guest pulled Serena away, leaving her feeling as if she'd been stabbed in the back. She looked for Grayson, but he was surrounded by businessmen, with Eleanor introducing him to another young woman, clearly a suitable candidate for a Blackwood wife. The gala dragged on with moments that made Amelia want to crawl into a hole, but she decided to turn it into a game to stay sane. When one of Grayson's aunts asked if she played the piano, a necessary skill for a Blackwood lady, Amelia winked and said, "I don't play piano, but I can wield a chainsaw like an artist. Want to see me build a chicken coop?" The table erupted in laughter, including Grayson's uncle, who clapped delightedly. Grayson nearby nearly choked on his champagne, and for the first time that night, he looked at her with a spark of amusement. She kept up the tactic, turning rude questions into chances to charm. When a friend of Eleanor's asked about her pedigree, Amelia beamed. "Oh, my ancestors were legendary builders. They once made a pig pen so stunning, the whole village was in awe." The crowd roared, and though Eleanor glared, Amelia felt she'd scored a point. But her small victories didn't last. In a quiet moment, Amelia overheard guests whispering, "An architect? Probably just a gold digger. Grayson will come to his senses and return to Serena." The words stabbed at her pride. She glanced at Grayson, talking with his mother, and felt an invisible gulf. He belonged to this world, lavish galas, powerful handshakes. Her? She belonged to her crumbling house, with its dust and dreams. On the drive back to Willow Creek at midnight, Amelia was silent. Grayson, sensing her mood, pulled over in front of his house and turned to her. "You okay?" he asked, his voice low. Amelia stared out the window, her voice trembling. "Will I ever really fit into your world, Grayson? Those people, they looked at me like I was a mistake." Grayson gripped the steering wheel, his eyes darkening. "They don't matter," he said. "I don't care what they think. You're here because I chose you, Amelia." "But why?" she asked, facing him. "You could have anyone, Serena or any of those perfect women there. Why me?" Grayson was quiet for a moment, then took her hand, squeezing gently. "Because you're real. You don't pretend. You don't try to please anyone. You make me want to be real too." His words pierced Amelia's heart, but they also scared her. She was feeling something for him, something beyond the contract, yet she felt small in his world. She pulled her hand back, offering a weak smile. "I need time, Grayson." He nodded, not pushing. As Amelia stepped out of the car, walking the few steps to her dilapidated house, she felt a small crack in her heart. Torn between growing feelings and insecurity, she didn't know if she could keep going. Grayson, alone in his living room, looked out the window toward Amelia's house. He knew he felt something deeper than the contract, but the secrets of the Blackwood family, and what they were capable of, could destroy everything. He only hoped she was strong enough to face what was coming. Amelia Brooks sat in the cluttered living room of her dilapidated house, the dim light from an old desk lamp illuminating the pile of blueprints and papers strewn about. The sound of hammers echoed faintly from the roof, where a crew worked, funded by the money from her contract with Grayson Blackwood. But her mind wasn't here. It was reeling from the events of the Blackwood family gala the previous week. Eleanor's disdain, Serena Whitmore's barbed remarks, and Grayson's protective gaze swirled in her head like an emotional storm. She knew he was the heir to the Blackwood Corporation, but his glittering world still made her feel small and out of place. Grayson had tried to reach out, leaving messages and even showing up at her door with a thermos of coffee, his usual way of keeping the peace. But Amelia had dodged him, needing time to process her insecurities and the undeniable stirrings in her heart. She feared she was feeling something beyond the contract, and that was dangerous, especially when his family clearly didn't accept her. Today, Grayson sent a curt text. "Meet me at my place, 6 p.m., important." Amelia sighed, knowing she couldn't avoid him forever. She threw on a simple t-shirt and dusty jeans, determined to keep things professional. But when she stepped into Grayson's luxurious house, she found him in the living room, dressed in a sharp black suit, his expression more tense than usual. "What's going on, Blackwood?" Amelia asked, crossing her arms. "If this is about your family wanting to turn me into an appetizer again, I'm not interested." Grayson didn't smile. He stepped closer, his voice low. "My family issued an ultimatum. They want me to divorce you and marry Serena Whitmore. If I don't, they'll strip me of my inheritance." Amelia blinked, her mind spinning. "What? Are they serious?" She let out a dry laugh, but it faded when she saw Grayson's grim expression. "So what are you going to do? Agree with them?" Grayson looked at her, his gray eyes flashing with something, resolve, or perhaps anger. "I'm not doing what they want," he said, "but I need you to come with me tonight. There's a media event in Richmond. I'm going to settle this once and for all." Amelia frowned, unease rising. "What event? And why do I need to go?" "Because I need you there," Grayson replied, his voice low but firm. "You're my wife, Amelia. Contract or not, I won't let them disrespect you." His words made her heart race, but she hesitated. "Grayson, I don't belong in those places. You saw the last gala. I was like a fish out of water." He stepped closer, taking her hand and squeezing gently. "You don't need to belong to them. You belong with me." He paused, as if realizing what he'd said, then quickly released her hand. "I mean, I need you there, please." Amelia met his gaze, seeing a rare sincerity. She sighed, nodding. "Fine, Blackwood. But if anyone asks me about playing the piano again, I'm saying I can build a pig pen." Grayson laughed, a real laugh that lit up his face. "I look forward to hearing it." The event took place at a luxurious hotel in downtown Richmond, where the Blackwood Corporation hosted its annual charity gala, drawing media and high society. Amelia, in a simple yet elegant silver evening gown, chosen by Grayson because his taste was better, felt like she was entering an arena. Camera flashes blinded her, and she had to fight the urge to hide behind Grayson. Eleanor Blackwood and Serena Whitmore were already there, holding court in the crowd like queens. Serena, in a shimmering gold gown, smiled at Grayson, but shot Amelia a contemptuous glance. Eleanor, as poised as ever, approached and whispered to Grayson, loud enough for Amelia to hear. "You still have a chance to fix this, Grayson. Serena is the right choice." Grayson tightened his grip on Amelia's hand, his voice icy. "Mother, I've made my choice, and it's not Serena." Eleanor raised an eyebrow but said nothing more. Amelia felt every eye on her and had to remind herself to breathe. She leaned toward Grayson, whispering, "If I do something stupid tonight, just blame the champagne, okay?" He glanced at her, the corner of his mouth twitching. "Just be you, Brooks. That's what I need." The gala proceeded smoothly until the speeches began. Grayson was called to the stage, and Amelia sat at the VIP table, feeling like she was on a bed of coals. He stepped up, tall and confident, his eyes sweeping the crowd before settling on her. She took a sip of champagne, trying to stay calm. "Thank you all for being here tonight," Grayson began, his voice deep and captivating. "The Blackwood Corporation has always prided itself on its contributions to the community, but today I want to address something more personal." Amelia frowned, unease growing. "What was he doing?" Grayson continued, his voice resolute. "Recently, my family has made unacceptable demands. They want me to abandon the woman I've chosen, claiming she doesn't fit the Blackwood name." The crowd murmured, and Amelia's heart pounded. Eleanor, seated nearby, stiffened. Serena gripped her glass, her eyes boring into Amelia. I'm here to make one thing clear, Grayson said, his gaze locked on Amelia. Amelia Brooks is my wife, and I love her. If my family thinks they can force me to leave her, they're wrong. I'm prepared to give up my inheritance, everything, if it means staying with her. The room fell silent, then erupted in whispers. Cameras flashed, reporters scrambled to record. Amelia sat frozen, her champagne glass nearly slipping from her hand. What had he just said? Love her? She stared at Grayson, her heart racing, torn between shock, emotion, and fear. Grayson stepped off the stage, ignoring the crowd, and strode to her. He pulled her to her feet, his eyes blazing. I meant it, Amelia, he whispered, just for her. I don't care about money or status. I just want you. Amelia opened her mouth, but no words came. She saw Eleanor stand, face pale, and Serena storm out, but it all blurred. There was only Grayson, standing before her, bearing everything for the first time. They left the ballroom, stepping onto an outdoor balcony to escape the crowd and media. Under the moonlight, Amelia turned to him, her voice trembling. You're insane, Grayson. Giving up your inheritance? Declaring you love me to the world? We're just a contract. Grayson took her hands, holding tight. No, not just a contract. Not to me. Not for a long time. He paused, his eyes softening. You make me laugh. You make me angry. You make me want to live truthfully. You're the only one who makes me feel like myself. Amelia's eyes stung with tears. She wanted to believe him, to lose herself in this moment, but fear clung to her. Grayson, your world, it's not mine. I'm a dusty architect, and you're a Blackwood. How can we? He cut her off with a kiss. His lips were warm, intense, as if pouring every emotion into that moment. Amelia froze, then closed her eyes, melting into his arms. The kiss lingered, passionate and promising, as if the world held only them. When they parted, their breaths mingling, Amelia felt her heart both shatter and mend. We'll find a way, Grayson said, his forehead against hers. I don't promise it'll be easy, but I promise to fight for you. Amelia smiled, tears streaming down. You're absolutely crazy, Blackwood. But she squeezed his hand, a seed of trust sprouting, though a delicate crack remained, fear that the gap between their worlds might never close. But not everyone accepted Grayson's decision. Back in Willow Creek, Amelia received an anonymous email with photos of her at the construction site, accompanied by a threat. Leave Grayson, or your career will be ruined. She suspected Serena was behind it, especially after hearing rumors that Serena had met privately with Eleanor to deal with the Amelia problem. At the same time, a major contractor abruptly canceled their deal with Amelia, citing lack of credibility. She knew it wasn't a coincidence. The Blackwood family and Serena were attacking, targeting her dream of restoring the house. Amelia kept it from Grayson, not wanting to worry him, but the pressure weighed heavily. She looked at him, the man who'd given up everything for her, and wondered if their love was strong enough to weather the coming storm. Grayson, meanwhile, began to realize his family wouldn't back down easily. He was determined to protect Amelia, but he knew a bigger secret about the Blackwood family's past could destroy everything. Amelia Brooks sat in the cluttered living room of her dilapidated Willow Creek house, the dim light from an old desk lamp casting shadows over scattered blueprints on the scratched wooden floor. The distant sound of hammers echoed as the crew finished the roof, funded by the money from her contract with Grayson Blackwood. Despite recent tensions, anonymous, threatening emails, and a major contractor abruptly canceling their deal, the bond between her and Grayson had grown stronger. His public declaration of love at the charity gala, their first kiss under the moonlight, and his unwavering defense against the Blackwood family had built a new trust in Amelia's heart. Though she worried about the divide between their worlds, she was beginning to believe their love could overcome anything. Grayson had become her anchor. When she told him about the threatening emails, he hired a security team to protect her house project and launched an investigation, suspecting Serena Whitmore or his mother, Eleanor, was behind it. He often visited her house, bringing coffee or helping carry lumber, though he'd jokingly complain about the dust. Trying to turn me into a builder, Brooks? He'd ask, wiping sweat after framing a wall. What's wrong with being a builder? Amelia would retort, winking. You look better in dusty shirts than suits. Those moments made Amelia feel they were building a real future. But she never expected that tonight, everything would come crashing down. Amelia was clearing a corner of the house to prepare for a structural inspection. She opened an old wooden box found in the basement, expecting only blueprints from the Harper family, the previous owners. Instead, she found documents bearing the Brooks & Sons logo, her father's company. Her heart raced as she flipped through the pages. Contracts, letters, and meeting minutes from 5 years ago, when the company went bankrupt. Her breath grew heavy as she read. The documents detailed how Brooks & Sons lost a major project to a rival corporation after a ruthless takeover, leading to crippling debt and collapse. The name behind it made Amelia freeze. Blackwood Corporation. A letter from her father, Henry Brooks, described how Blackwood used unfair tactics to destroy his small company. They didn't just want to win, they wanted to annihilate us, he wrote. Amelia trembled, the image of her frail father in his hospital bed flashing in her mind. He lost everything because of Blackwood, and she was in love with a Blackwood. She slammed the documents shut, tears spilling over. Grayson couldn't have known about this, but doubt gnawed at her. He'd hidden his billionaire status before. Could he be hiding this too? Clutching the papers, she marched to Grayson's house, her heart heavy as lead. Grayson was reading a newspaper in his living room when Amelia burst in without knocking. He stood alarmed by her devastated expression. Amelia, what's wrong? She threw the documents onto the table, her voice shaking with anger and pain. What do you know about this, Grayson? Blackwood destroyed my father's company, ruined my family. What do you know? Grayson picked up the papers, his face paling as he read. Amelia, I didn't know about this, he said, his voice laced with shock. I swear, 5 years ago, I was abroad, not involved in the family business. You expect me to believe that? Amelia shouted, tears streaming down. You're a Blackwood. You hid things from me before? How do I know you're not covering this up? Grayson reached for her hand, but she stepped back. Amelia, listen to me, he pleaded. I'll investigate, find out who was responsible. If my family did this, You'll what? She cut him off, her voice breaking. Say sorry? Give back the years my family lost? My father was hospitalized. My mother sold her wedding ring because of this. And I love you, but how can I love someone whose name destroyed my family? Her confession hit like a knife. Grayson stood frozen, pain etched on his face. Amelia, he whispered, but words failed him. He wanted to hold her, but her shattered gaze stopped him. I can't, Amelia choked out. Every time I look at you, I see my father's pain. I choose my family, Grayson. She turned and walked out. Grayson gripped the documents, his heart constricting. He wanted to chase her, but knew she needed space. He vowed to uncover the truth and make amends no matter the cost. Amelia returned to her house, collapsing onto the floor, sobbing. She loved Grayson, but that love felt like a betrayal of her parents, who'd sacrificed everything. She clutched the documents, the final proof of her family's pain. In the days that followed, Amelia buried herself in work, laboring from dawn to dusk, overseeing the crew, drafting designs, trying not to think of Grayson. But every hammer strike, every crack in the walls reminded her of him, the man who patched her roof, who laughed when she spilled coffee. She tried to stay strong, but at night she cried, grappling with her loss. Lily, her best friend, came to comfort her. You can't blame yourself for loving him, Lily said, hugging her. But you need to protect your heart. If he loves you, he'll make this right. I don't know if there's anything to fix, Amelia whispered. I can't forgive his family. Grayson descended into darkness. He locked himself in his office, digging through old Blackwood records, uncovering that the takeover of Brooks & Sons was orchestrated by his father, William Blackwood, with Eleanor's approval. He felt disgust for his family and himself for benefiting from Amelia's pain. He called his mother, his voice cold. What do you know about Brooks & Sons? Just business, Grayson, Eleanor replied calmly. We protected our interests. That was destroying people's lives, Grayson roared. Amelia is my wife, and you knew her family suffered. A contract, she scoffed. Serena is the one who belongs. Grayson hung up, questioning his family's legacy. He met with lawyers, seeking ways to compensate the companies Blackwood had crushed, starting with Brooks and Sons, but he did so quietly, not wanting Amelia to think he was trying to buy her back. Days later, Amelia received a handwritten letter from Grayson, brief but laden with emotion. Amelia, I didn't know what my family did to yours, but I'll take responsibility. I respect your choice, but I won't stop making amends. You deserve justice. Grayson. She read it, tears falling. She wanted to believe him, to tell him she hurt too, but thinking of her father, she felt she had no right to forgive. Both sank into their private darkness. Amelia worked like a machine, the light in her dimming. Grayson watched her house from his window, vowing to prove his love, no matter how long it took. Amelia Brooks drove through the oak-lined roads of suburban Virginia, her heart as heavy as the gray sky above. Her dilapidated house in Willow Creek, just a rusted iron fence away from Grayson Blackwood's home, had become her refuge from pain. 2 weeks had passed since she walked away from Grayson after discovering that the Blackwood Corporation caused the collapse of her father's company, Brooks and Sons. Each night she wrestled with sleep, haunted by images of Grayson, the man she loved, the man she couldn't be with. His letter promising to make amends sat on her desk, but she lacked the courage to respond or face him. Today she didn't head to the construction site as usual. Instead, she drove to St. Mary's Hospital, where her father Henry Brooks was being treated for heart disease. She delayed this visit, fearing that seeing her father, the person most hurt by Blackwood, would deepen her wounds. But a morning text from her mother saying her father wanted to see her left her no choice. The hospital reeked of antiseptic, filled with the sound of hurried footsteps. Amelia entered her father's room, her heart tightening at the sight of him on the bed, frail and pale. Henry, once a robust man with a radiant smile, now seemed a shadow. But when he saw her, his eyes lit up. "Amelia," he said, his voice weak but warm. "You came." She sat by his bedside, taking his hand, forcing a smile. "I'm sorry I didn't come sooner, Dad. Work. It's been hectic." Henry shook his head, his bony hand squeezing hers lightly. "No apologies, sweetheart. I know you're doing your best. That house, your mom told me, you make me proud." Amelia bowed her head, tears welling. She wanted to tell him about Grayson, about Blackwood, about her broken heart, but she feared hurting him. Instead, she asked, "How are you?" "What did the doctors say?" Henry gave a faint smile, tinged with sadness. "What the doctors say doesn't matter anymore. I've lived long enough to see you become a strong woman, but I have things to say before it's too late." Amelia gripped his hand, her voice trembling. "Don't talk like that, Dad. You'll get better." He shook his head, his eyes gentle but firm. "Listen to me, Amelia. I've lived with regrets. I regret not saving the company, not giving you and your mom a better life. But my biggest regret is holding on to pain." He paused, taking a frail breath. "When Brooks and Sons fell, I let resentment eat me alive. It stole years I could have spent happy with you and your mom." Amelia's throat tightened. She knew he was talking about Blackwood, though he didn't name them. "You don't need to think about that anymore," she whispered. "It wasn't your fault." "I know," he said, "and I've forgiven. Not for them, but for myself. Forgiveness gave me peace, Amelia. You need to do the same. I see the pain in your eyes. What's going on, sweetheart?" His question cut like a knife. Amelia broke down, unable to hold back. She told him everything. The fake marriage contract with Grayson, the love that grew, and the devastating truth that Blackwood had ruined their family. "I love him, Dad," she choked out. "But how can I be with him when his family took everything from us? I feel like I'm betraying you, betraying Mom." Henry listened silently. When she finished, he held her hand tighter, his eyes full of love. "Amelia, listen to me. Forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting or accepting what happened. It means freeing your heart so you can love and live again. If this man truly loves you, if he's willing to make things right, don't let the past chain you. I lost years to resentment. Don't repeat my mistake." Amelia sobbed, resting her head on his shoulder. But what do I do, Dad? I don't know how to start over. He stroked her hair, his voice soft. Listen to your heart. It'll guide you. Amelia returned to Willow Creek at dusk, her mind swirling with her father's words. She stepped into her crumbling house, sat among her blueprints, and reread Grayson's letter. His promise to make amends, written in strong yet emotional strokes, felt like a small flame warming her heart. Her father was right. Clinging to pain only tethered her to the past. She began to see that forgiveness wasn't about erasing what Blackwood did, but allowing herself to love and live. She wasn't ready to face Grayson yet. The pain lingered, and she needed time to heal. She stood, opened a new blueprint, and started sketching. For the first time in weeks, a faint spark of hope flickered. Not for Grayson, but for herself. She wanted to believe she could reclaim her future. Each night, Amelia worked late, the light from her crumbling house spilling through the fence like a beacon in the dark. She didn't know that Grayson often stood silently at his window, watching her draw or measure, his heart aching at their distance. He wanted to cross the fence, to tell her he was trying, but he respected her silence. In her weary moments, Amelia would glance at Grayson's house. The living room light always glowed, but she rarely saw him. Once she glimpsed his silhouette through the window, standing still, and her heart clenched. She quickly looked away, telling herself she wasn't ready, but each glance stirred an undeniable longing. Meanwhile, Grayson began his quest to right his family's wrongs. After confirming Blackwood's role in the Brooks & Sons takeover, he took concrete steps. He contacted a nonprofit dedicated to supporting small businesses harmed by large corporations, quietly funding a compensation fund. He instructed the organization to seek out and aid companies Blackwood had crushed, starting with Brooks & Sons, without revealing his identity. I don't want them thinking this is a PR stunt, he told the representative. I want them to get justice. Grayson also funded a community project in Willow Creek, a learning center Amelia had mentioned in passing, where local kids could learn art and construction skills. He worked with architects to ensure the project reflected Amelia's spirit, simple, sustainable, and inspiring. He didn't tell her, not wanting her to think he was buying her forgiveness. He did these things because they were right, and because he wanted to build a future Amelia could be proud of, whether she returned to him or not. He faced pressure from his family, especially Eleanor. In a call, she warned, "You're destroying yourself for a girl who doesn't belong, Grayson. Serena is still waiting for you to come to your senses." Grayson gave a cold laugh. "Mother, I don't need Serena or the inheritance. If you want to fight, go ahead. I won't stop." He hung up, feeling lighter. For the first time, he wasn't the Blackwood heir, but just Grayson, a man trying to do right. Yet each time he saw the light from Amelia's house, an unfillable void lingered. Amelia began noticing small changes. An old contractor reached out, saying they'd received anonymous funding to resume her project. She also received an unexplained bank transfer, enough to cover part of her family's debts. She suspected Grayson, but had no proof and wasn't ready to ask. One morning, she got a letter from a nonprofit, informing her they were reviewing compensation for Brooks & Sons due to past damages. The letter didn't mention Blackwood, but Amelia sensed a connection. One evening, she stood outside her house, watching the walls slowly rise. She glanced at Grayson's house, seeing the living room light, but no sign of him. She sighed, thinking of her father, his advice, and Grayson, the man who gave up everything for her, but carried the name that broke her family. Her heart softened, but a gap remained. She couldn't yet run to him or say she forgave him. But deep down, she knew she was inching closer to that day. Grayson from his window saw Amelia standing under the streetlight, her gaze briefly turning toward his house. He clenched his fists, his heart aching, but he didn't step out. He wanted to give her time, even if it killed him day by day. Amelia Brooks stood amidst the construction site of the new Willow Creek Community Center, clutching a clipboard, her eyes scanning the walls taking shape. This project, a space for children to learn art, construction, and to dream, was a vision she'd long cherished, funded by an anonymous source she suspected was tied to Grayson Blackwood. 2 months had passed since she walked away from him after discovering that the Blackwood Corporation had ruined her father's company, Brooks & Sons. Her father's advice about forgiveness had helped her release some of the pain, but her heart remained torn. She wasn't ready to face Grayson, though the moments she caught herself glancing at his house, where the living room light glowed, but his silhouette was rarely seen, betrayed the longing she couldn't deny. She threw herself into work to fill the void. Her dilapidated house was nearly complete, with new walls and a roof that no longer leaked. The community center project was progressing rapidly, thanks to unexpected funding and support from local contractors. But each night, when the light from Grayson's house spilled through the rusted iron fence, she wondered what he was doing and whether he was truly keeping his promise to make amends, as his letter had vowed. Grayson Blackwood had changed. After confirming his family's role in the Brooks & Sons takeover, he renounced his inheritance, cut ties with his mother, Eleanor, and stepped down from the Blackwood Corporation's board. He lived simply in his Willow Creek house, working remotely with a nonprofit to support small businesses harmed by large conglomerates. He quietly funded Amelia's community center, ensuring she had everything she needed, from building materials to a team of engineers, without revealing his involvement. He didn't want her to think he was trying to buy her forgiveness. He only wanted her to achieve her dream. Grayson often stood by his window, watching Amelia work under the site's floodlights, her brown hair tied high and her green eyes blazing with determination. He missed the way she laughed when she spilled coffee on his laptop, the way she yelled when he accidentally walked into her bathroom. But he kept his distance, respecting her choice, though each day without her felt like a knife in his heart. One crisp fall afternoon, Amelia was checking progress at the community center when a group of volunteers arrived to help. She barely noticed the man in a flannel shirt and baseball cap, hauling paint cans into the storage room, until he turned and their eyes met. Her heart stopped for a moment. Grayson. He looked different, more rugged, with dust on his shirt and a rare, sheepish smile. "Hey, Brooks," he said, his voice low. "I just came to help." Amelia blinked, struggling to stay composed. "Grayson? What are you doing here?" He shrugged, setting the paint cans down. "Heard this project needed hands. I had time, so—" He trailed off, meeting her gaze, his gray eyes sincere. "It looks incredible, Amelia. You've done something extraordinary." She turned away, her heart racing, not wanting him to see her flustered. "Thanks," she muttered, focusing on her clipboard. But Grayson didn't leave. He stayed all day, painting walls, carrying lumber, and even joking with the volunteer kids, making them burst into laughter. Amelia watched him from a distance, noticing a humility and dedication she hadn't fully seen before. He was no longer the arrogant Blackwood heir. He was just Grayson, a man trying to do right. As the sun set, the site emptied, leaving only Amelia and Grayson. She stood in the unfinished structure, the sunset casting golden light through empty window frames. Grayson approached, hands in his pockets, his voice soft. "I didn't come to push you to talk. I just wanted to help." Amelia looked at him, her heart softening. "I know," she said. "And I see what you've been doing. The contractors, the funding, the money for my family. It's you, isn't it?" Grayson nodded, not denying it. "I didn't want you to think I was trying to buy you back. I just wanted to fix what my family broke." She fell silent, her eyes tracing his face, the features that once infuriated her, now only making her miss him. "Grayson, She paused, tears welling. "I'm trying to forgive. My dad told me to let go, but I'm scared." He stepped closer, not touching her, but his eyes brimmed with emotion. "I don't deserve your forgiveness, Amelia, but I'll spend my life proving I love you, whether you give me a chance or not." His words shattered the last of her defenses. She stepped forward, wrapping her arms around him, sobbing into his chest. Grayson held her tightly, as if afraid she'd vanish. "I missed you," he whispered, his voice choked. "Every single day." In the weeks that followed, Amelia and Grayson began rebuilding their relationship, step by cautious step. They worked together at the community center, laughing while painting walls or bickering over window placements. Grayson remained committed to his simple life, refusing to return to the Blackwood's glittering world, and Amelia saw he had changed, not just for her, but because he wanted to be a better man. One afternoon, as the community center neared completion, Grayson led Amelia to the site, where the sunset bathed the new walls in a vibrant orange glow. He stood in the structure, hands in his pockets, looking slightly nervous. "Amelia," he said, his voice low, "I have something to show you." She raised an eyebrow, following him to a corner of the site, where a wooden plaque was mounted engraved with the words, "Amelia Brooks Community Center, where dreams are built." Amelia covered her mouth, tears shimmering. "Grayson, when did you do this?" "When you weren't looking," he replied, smiling. Then he knelt, pulling a simple silver ring from his pocket. "Amelia Brooks, I don't have castles or thrones. I only have this heart, and it's yours. Be my wife, this time for real. Build a home with me, one filled with love and truth." Amelia cried, kneeling to embrace him. "You idiot," she whispered, her voice breaking. "Yes." They kissed in the construction site, under the sunset, the breeze through the empty windows like a blessing. Amelia felt every pain, every doubt dissolve, leaving only love and hope. They reconciled, choosing to face future challenges together, bound by respect and a profound love. The weeks following their engagement were a whirlwind of joy and purpose. Amelia's house was completed, transformed into a warm, inviting home that reflected her vision, a blend of rustic charm and modern simplicity. She moved in, but Grayson was a constant presence, helping her hang curtains or teasing her about her cluttered desk. The community center opened with a grand ceremony, attended by Willow Creek residents, local officials, and even Amelia's parents. Henry Brooks, frail but beaming, walked through the center with Amelia, his pride evident. "You did it, sweetheart," he said, squeezing her hand. "And that man of yours, he's a keeper." Amelia laughed, glancing at Grayson, who was joking with kids near a mural they'd painted together. "Yeah, Dad, I think so too." Grayson faced lingering challenges from his family. Eleanor tried to pull him back into the Blackwood fold, threatening legal action over his abandoned inheritance. But he stood firm. He hired lawyers to ensure the nonprofit he supported could continue compensating Blackwood's past victims, including Brooks and Sons, without his direct involvement. Serena Whitmore, humiliated by Grayson's rejection, left Richmond, her influence fading. Amelia received no more threatening emails, and her career flourished as word of her community center spread, attracting new clients. One evening, Amelia and Grayson sat on the porch of her restored house, wrapped in a blanket, watching the stars. The house, once a ruin, now glowed with life. New windows, a sturdy roof, and a garden they'd planted together. Grayson held her hand, his thumb tracing circles on her skin. "You know," he said, "I used to think a house was just walls and a roof. But you showed me it's more. It's where love lives." Amelia leaned against him, smiling. "And you showed me love is worth fighting for, even when it's messy." He kissed her forehead, his voice soft. "This house, it's ours, isn't it?" She nodded, her heart full. "Ours, and every brick, every nail has our story." They sat in comfortable silence, the night wrapping around them like a promise. The house, named Love, stood as a testament to their journey, from a contract born of necessity to a bond forged in forgiveness and truth. Amelia knew challenges would come: Grayson's family, her own insecurities, the complexities of blending their worlds. But together they were unstoppable. As the stars twinkled above Willow Creek, Amelia and Grayson held each other, ready to build not just a house, but a life, brick by brick, heart by heart. The following spring, Amelia and Grayson held a small, heartfelt wedding in a meadow in Willow Creek, beneath the shade of ancient oak trees. Only close family and friends, Amelia's mother Lily, and a few locals attended. Amelia's father, though frail, sat in the front row, beaming as he watched his daughter walk down the aisle in a simple white dress. Amelia looked at Grayson, waiting for her at the end of the path, and felt her heart overflow. This wasn't a contract. This was forever. After the wedding, Amelia founded her own architecture firm, Brooks Design, specializing in sustainable and community-focused projects. She secured numerous contracts, from schools to cultural centers, thanks to the reputation she earned from the Willow Creek Community Center. Grayson, meanwhile, ran a charitable foundation, focusing on compensating and supporting small businesses harmed by large corporations. He continued to live simply, rejecting all invitations to return to the Blackwood fold, and became the man Amelia always knew he could be. Together, they finished restoring the dilapidated house Amelia had bought at the start. Instead of selling it, they transformed it into a second community center, a space for young artists and struggling families with brightly painted walls and stained glass windows designed by Amelia. The house, once a symbol of broken dreams, now stood as a testament to their shared values: love, forgiveness, and rebirth. One evening, as the center officially opened, Amelia and Grayson stood in the yard, watching children run and play inside. The sunset bathed them in a warm golden glow. Grayson wrapped his arms around her from behind, whispering in her ear, "If home is where the heart is, you're my forever home."